It was so wrong.
Okay, I'm back again with the first point in my Prometheus review. Watching the trailer, it's still, I think, one of the best trailers I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think back in December when I first saw this trailer, I was like really expecting, like everyone else, expecting a great movie. Even if it wasn't like Alien, I expected it to be, decent. Sort of better than 2012 in a way. So, and it falls short from being a prequel to Alien, I think. And a lot of my problems, I said before, was with the writing and the story. Not so much the visual effects, the entertainment factor is there. I get what they're doing, it's cool. I love Ridley Scott, I love him, I love his work. I like all actors in this movie. Actually, I have no problems with the actors. I thought the acting was decent. It's funny thing about it, I didn't realize Damon Lindelof, I'm not sure of his name, wrote this movie. I know Lindelof, I know he did Lost, and I know he's responsible for a lot of what I didn't like about Lost. I know he's partially responsible for that. So it's a funny thing, I didn't know he was a writer on this film until I think the day before I saw, when it came out in Britain. I saw a reviewer talk about the writing, and his name popped up, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, oh my god, he wrote this? So, and that made me kind of like, okay. I went into it the first time I saw Prometheus, and I saw it 3 times, kind of wary that that writer was involved in this project. I had no idea up until this was like a couple of days before the movie debuted in the US. So, the first point I'm going to bring up about the movie that I have issues with, and like I said, my whole idea of this video that I'm doing right now is to say Prometheus is a bad movie, but I'm not going to just say it's a bad movie like a lot of people are doing. I'm going to say why it could have been a good movie. And I think the reason I'm so interested in this enigma, and it's like an enigma to me, is that this movie could have been so much better, like easily better than what it is. It's a good movie visually. They took care of the visual effects, the direction, the acting is good, but the writing and the story is just like, I don't know, like if they had like monkeys in the back, like writing the script or whatever, or the screenplay for this. It just befuddles me, like I said before. So the first point, and I'm gonna use my points, 3 points to bring up why the movie could have been, why it's bad and why it could have been better. The first point is the problem with Dr. Holloway. The Dr. Holloway character it was confusing to me at first when I first saw the movie. The movie opens up with the engineer sacrificing himself, and you sit back, you're like, okay, what just happened? Second scene, and Ridley Scott, I know Ridley Scott is probably responsible for this, is probably the most brilliant opening in a science fiction movie I've ever seen. You have the prologue scene where the engineer is sacrificing himself. He falls into the ocean or the body of water, the waterfall, and he goes into the earth, and you see his DNA spread out and go different parts. And the second scene, very next scene after that, you see darkness, and all of a sudden you see Shaw is digging out, the Shaw character is digging a hole towards us. Like from our perspective, we're in the ground looking out at Shaw. She's digging out the cave or whatever she's digging out. And I thought that was a brilliant transition from the previous scene to that scene, because Scott, what really is doing is like we're sort of in that old ancient world where the engineer just sacrificed himself. I'm not sure if that was Earth or not, but if it is Earth, it works for what's happening, because Shaw's digging out, she's looking for answers, and she's digging out, and we're in that sort of darkness, that mystery of the past and what went on. We just saw it. Shaw doesn't see it, but she's looking for what we just saw. And I thought that was a brilliant transition. So I was like, I'm sitting down and I'm watching this. And I kind of got that in maybe my second viewing of this movie. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a good movie. Like, I like what they just did. And the very next scene, it just all goes, that's where the movie, for me, goes downhill. And I think another reviewer brought it up, that the Holloway character, they didn't like that character. A lot of people don't like Holloway. Yeah, he redeems himself at some point in the movie, but a lot of people don't like his character, and they don't know why. or they don't know what point they don't like his character. I tell you what point it was. It was this point, the very second scene after Shaw uncovers the cave. Her assistant runs outside and she's calling down for Holloway to come up. We don't know Holloway's character yet, but you know, he's a scientist. He's whatever he's doing, he's digging up artifacts or what have you. And as a scientist myself, I understand what they're doing is sort of the equivalent of sort of a treasure hunt for treasure. And if your partner that you're treasure hunting with says, Holloway, come up, we found something, it's awesome. He turns around and literally in the movie he goes, what? What do you want? What? Like, they're bothering him. And I thought that was kind of strange. I'm like, okay, is he with her? Is he someone else? So I thought that was interesting. And at that point I didn't really like his character because he was like an angry little child being called to do a chore. And he set up that way, and I don't know why. I'm like, okay, he's a scientist. And the very next scene he goes into the cave and he kisses her and it's all emotional. He's like, oh, we found what we're looking for. Oh, it's so beautiful. But that just didn't work out. And I was like, okay, that's kind of bipolar of that character. To be like, one scene like, what do you want? I don't want to come up the hill. And he marches up the hill, and then he gets there and he's like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And it's like, all right, this movie's going to be in for a ride. It's gonna, you know. So, and this is echoed throughout the movie with the Holloway character. In that his character is very bipolar. He's a scientist. He set up the story. In the story, he's a scientist. In the story, he's seeking answers. In the story, he has a role in the story. But his character's written, the actions of his character goes against his purpose in the story. And he's very contradictory. Like in one scene, he's in a conversation with David, right when David gives him the black goo and the whiskey or whatever he's drinking. And that's the thing, like, they're in a scientific discovery, and in the next room, and this scene was just silly. In the next room, I think Shaw and a couple of people are dissecting the head, and they're talking about the head and what it means. And in the next room, I guess in the rec room, the pool table, Holloway is getting drunk on the pool table, like, not even playing pool, just like getting smashed. And I understand it was Christmas night or whatever, but you've been looking for this your entire life, but you're in a pool table sulking that I think what you found so far, being like maybe an hour out into this alien world, wasn't what you were looking for. You've only been out, it's like going to Coney Island, stepping like 2 feet onto the boardwalk, and realizing the boardwalk is hot. And you're like, oh, it's so hot, and you run back to your car, and you're like sulking, like you went to the beach and you didn't do anything, and at least I was looking for. But you didn't go past the boardwalk onto the beach into the ocean. And that's kind of sums up this scene, because they've only just got there. So why is he so upset? And why is he so disheartened? Why is he like, oh, it's all for nothing, you know? And it's like, it doesn't make sense. You know, as a scientist, I understand a lot of what we do. And science is one of those, I think, a colleague of mine said that it's a very self-torturous field. Is that the work we do is not, you don't get rewarded right away. It's a lot of piecework. So you do piece by piece by piece by piece until you discover something or you find a solution to the problems you're solving. And leading up to what they're doing in their quest of what they're looking for, they're at the verge of solving it. You just got there, you just landed, you looked at maybe about 300 square yards, about a square mile of planet. You've analyzed already. There's a whole other planet, there's a whole other system to discover. You're not really there yet. So he's acting like he's been there and he's just annoyed and he didn't find what he's looking for. And moving on. The problem with Holloway's character from a writer's perspective is that I understand what the writer is trying to do. He's trying to create tension with that character. Holloway's character is very central to the plot and the story. Holloway's character is very, very important to Prometheus. And the handling of Holloway's character is very, very important to what happens to the other characters, right? Holloway is basically, I'm going to just come out and say, he's the Burke for Prometheus. Like how the Burke character in Aliens sort of was sent there and he's sort of the character you didn't like. But he had a purpose, and you understood Burke. Burke was a developed character in what he did in terms of, like, he sabotaged Ripley and trying to get her impregnated by the facehugger in the room at one scene. He traps the Marine in a in a basement with aliens. In another scene, Burke has a purpose. He's a character, right? We understand him. We kind of don't like him, but we like him because he's kind of funny. We understand what he's doing, right? He's like the bad kid you have in your family. You don't like him, but you understand why he's bad, or you understand the way he is. That's Burke. Holloway is the same character, basically, in this movie. But what Lindelof is doing is that he's trying to make us not like Holloway, but at the same time, he's trying to not develop Holloway because he's trying to distance us from him, from who Holloway maybe is inside, internally, what he's dealing with. But to make this movie better, right, it all depends on the Holloway character, right? If Holloway is a character that comes out, we don't understand him, we don't like him, the movie kind of falls apart. But if Holloway, we understand his purpose, like the way Burke had a purpose in Aliens, you know, he's in there and the movie works because Burke is in there. If Burke isn't in Aliens, none of that action happens. It's just going to be like one of those videos on YouTube, how it should have ended in Aliens. It would have been a 2-minute movie if Burke wasn't in that movie. Same thing I think with Holloway in this movie to some extent. If Holloway is not in this movie, in my scenario I'm going to present to you in a minute, there's no movie. There's no, like, there is a movie, but it's not a movie you'd want to watch. There's no tension, right? The Holloway character should have been like this, right? Instead of like this, he's a co-scientist with Shaw and they're in love and they're trying to have a baby, whatever. That's, oh, it's all dramatic, oh, it's all sweet. It's a parallel story that has nothing to do with alien discovery and black goo, right? We're there to see alien discovery and black goo. We're not there to see Shaw and Holloway try to have a baby or talk about their baby issues. I'm not trying to see that. I understand it, I feel for them, whatever. Holloway should have been, right? He should have been Burke. He should have been someone that Weyland hired to accompany the mission, but Weyland secretly hires him to say, okay, keep an eye on Shaw, and whatever she finds, bring back to me, or whatever she finds, preserve it, because we want it back on Earth, right? That's it. That's all Holloway should have been. He should have been maybe a competing scientist with Shaw from another company or institution. Maybe they know each other in a circle of scientific, whatever they do. I'm not really sure what they do. And he's sort of a villain. But a villain we don't know. Maybe he's working for Weyland. We don't know that in the movie, in the story that I'm presenting to you, right? So Holloway now becomes sort of a character that you could develop in that he's working against Shaw for Weyland. That's it. That's all you have to do to make Holloway work in the story. The story now has tension at the beginning, tension throughout the movie, and you don't need silly scenes to create tension between the Holloway characters. You don't need the scene like Holloway and David. Like, that was a silly scene. And I realized why that scene was in the movie, because there's no personal tension in the movie at that point. But now we have David conversing with Holloway about who's our maker, and it's stupid. I'm not even going to go into it, but it's just stupid. And then David poisons him with the black goo. Now, I understand the whole thing with Holloway David is to get the black goo into someone and get, you know, to see what it does. For the audience perspective, is let us see what the black goo does.